quoting, stands as a powerful testament to Alabamians' deeply held belief that every life is precious and that every life is a sacred gift from God. When the state Senate passed the bill last night, the ACLU vowed to sue, and today followed up with this tweet, quoting, "You can't say we didn't warn you, Governor Kay Ivey. See you in court." Of course, supporters not only expect it to be challenged, they're counting on it, hoping it's eventually picked up by the Supreme Court and will lead to overturning Roe versus Wade.
Fox's Trace Gallagher. President Trump is set to unveil a sweeping new immigration plan Thursday. The proposal calls to end the visa lottery program and implement a merit-based admissions procedure. The president's announcement is scheduled for Thursday afternoon. White House lawyers are keeping Congress at arm's length when it comes to the issue of subpoenas and requests for information.
The White House's top lawyer has told House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler that Congress has no right to Nadler's request for records and testimony from dozens of current and former White House staff. White House counsel Pat Cipollone stopped short in his letter of asserting executive privilege. Instead, he told Nadler he would consider a narrowed request if the chairman spells out the legislative purpose and legal support for the information he's seeking. Cipollone called Nadler's request a do-over of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
The body of a missing 19-year-old pregnant woman has been found. Chicago police say the infant was cut from the mother's body and is now in grave condition. The woman appears to have been strangled. This is Fox News.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sweet and Smoky Steak and Guac Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take my ex-girlfriend, just checking in.
Aw.
Hey, David, it's me, just checking in. I'm doing great. Just got the new Sweet and Smoky Steak and Guac Signature Wrap from Subway. Creamy guacamole, smoky sweet with Hio mesquite sauce, and double the tender steak. They just know what I want before I do. So, yeah, things are going pretty great for me. Subway, make it what you want. Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub. Okay, bye.
We have some really great home loan programs, but did you know we have great business loans too? Every day we're working with companies to purchase equipment, to buy or build properties, or make tenant improvements. We offer letters of credit, working capital, and term loans, and we make all of our credit decisions here. Commercial loans, commercial banking from Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
Dallas police searched the offices of the Catholic Diocese for information on priests.
Dallas police cite warrants naming 5 priests the diocese said in January were credibly accused. Bishop Edward Burns says the police have all that the diocese knows on those priests.
We know we have given them the files, and so we say, by all means, look.
Dallas police contends the diocese has not been so open with information. Still, Burns says the priority is the safety of the vulnerable, and that is his standard moving forward.
I stand confident as the Bishop of the Diocese of Dallas that we're doing what's right.
A Dallas abuse survivors group says the diocese has been keeping secrets about past abuses. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
A new study says eating more fruits and vegetables could lower a woman's risk of dying of breast cancer. The experiment also found that those who trimmed their fat intake had a 21% lower risk of death. The changes in diet did not affect the risk of developing cancer. This weekend, 13 horses will take to the track at Pimlico for the Preakness Stakes.
No country house, no maximum security, no Triple Crown bid, but the field for the 144th running of the Preakness is set after post-position draw on Wednesday.
Number 4 will be Improbable.
Bob Baffer trained Improbable, who finished 4th in the Kentucky Derby, will be the favorite for the second leg of horse racing's Triple Crown out of the 4-gate. That audio courtesy of Pimlico Racecourse. Improbable, one of only 4 Derby contending colts that will run the Preakness Stakes, joining Win, 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 War of Will, and Bodie Express. Among the others in the 13-horse field for the run for the Black-Eyed Susans, another Twist of Fate out of the 12-gate, and a 50-1 long shot named Everfast out of the 10-post. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
A mother is banned from a Los Angeles school. The woman is seen on cell phone video saying she'll fight the parents of kids who bully her daughter. The mother says she doesn't regret it. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Legends aren't born, they are made. And during our Jeep Celebration event at Cars Plus in Mighty, you'll receive up to $6,000 in accessories with the purchase of a new Jeep Wrangler Motor Trend SUV of the Year. Customize your new Jeep to the way you want it. Or how about a new Jeep Grand Cherokee? Save up to $5,000. Or save up to $7,500 on a new Jeep Compass Sport. It's our Jeep Celebration event going on now at Cars Plus in Mighty. Cars Plus, driven by you. Accessory special cannot be combined with other offers. See dealer for details.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I will probably keep on saying it for a long, long time. Being a champion of our constitutional rights as enumerated in the Bill of Rights to the United States Constitution, the Second Amendment being among those. And inasmuch as we value any of the Bill of Rights, it's important that we secure and protect all of them. The Second Amendment seems to be the one that's most vigorously attacked by the left right now, and perhaps requires as much defense as I can give it with my feeble little voice here on Tall Tales. So I'm going to do my best in that regard. As an example of those who would attempt to minimize the effect of the Second Amendment, I have an article here from the NRA publication called America's First Freedom. And it's titled, A National Gun Registry is Now on the Ballot for 2020. The presidential contenders screaming for the attention of Democrat primary voters are actually telling us what they really think. When, I can't remember who defined it, but the word gaffe. A politician will occasionally come up with a gaffe. A good example of a gaffe, well, the definition of a gaffe is when a politician tells you what he really thinks as opposed to what he thinks you really want to hear. But Senator Cory Booker is the latest. Like the rest, he wants so-called universal background checks, a ban on assault weapons, whatever they can stuff into that ever-expansive political definition of popular semi-automatic firearms, and a ban on standard capacity magazines. Booker also now says he wants to establish a federal registry of guns and gun owners. If Booker has his way, Americans who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights would have to apply to Washington, D.C. for permission, not just once, but every 5 years. Gun owners would also have to tell the federal government all about the guns they own. It's an Orwellian idea of Big Brother control that has consequences we are now seeing playing out in Venezuela. Venezuela being a good example of the utopia that the left promises to bring us if we would just go along with some of their silly ideas. Booker thinks America should be a may-issue nation for all guns. The difference between a may-issue and a shall-issue jurisdiction is this. We used to be a may-issue jurisdiction for concealed firearms. If you wanted a concealed firearms license, you had to apply to the chief of police, and you had to provide him with convincing reasons as to why you needed a concealed firearm. And the chief, in his unbound discretion, could say, yes, you can have one, or no, you can't. There were no standards that guided the chief. Therefore, Guam was a may-issue jurisdiction. I think in 32nd Guam legislature, we changed that. Now Guam is a shall-issue jurisdiction, which means that if you are, the right age, you're not locked up in prison or some kind of a lunatic asylum. I probably shouldn't have said that, because the left will misinterpret it, think I'm talking about them, etc. If you provide that information and the necessary fee and a couple of other things, then the chief of police shall issue a concealed firearms ID. Well, Booker wants to take that mechanism to permission to carry any firearm. That in order to carry any firearm, you'd have to have a federal registration, and the appropriate official may issue you the requisite card, or maybe he may not. I suppose a lot depends on how he feels that day, but that would be wrong, wouldn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
I mean, if he's comfortable.
If he's comfortable?
If they are comfortable.
If they are comfortable, yeah. If they are comfortable with me and my application, then they might want to issue the firearms ID. But if they're not comfortable, I don't get no ID. That's the difference between a may issue and a shall issue. And that's what that's probably what almost all the Democrat candidates want. They're tripping over themselves to see who can get the farthest out on the radical far left with all kinds of subjects, and firearms is their favorite. I'm more gun control than you are, every one of them says, and I suppose one of the candidates is going to get to the point where she'll ban tomahawks and bow and arrows. Do you know who that would be, Real Joe Cruz?
Pocahontas.
The senator from Massachusetts who occasionally passes herself off as Elizabeth Warren. Yeah, well, Elizabeth Warren would like to spend, from 2020 on, she'd like to spend the next 8 years in the White Wigwam. We'll see how that one works out for her. I've got a little educational exercise here. Let's get out our Law and Order notebooks. This morning, Ray was talking about firearms and concealed carry, etc., and asked me if a person if a person on Guam has a legal right to carry a firearm in public, assuming he has a requisite ID card, the firearm is registered, etc. And my answer was yes. And I went back and related how we had discussed the Ninth Circuit's ruling that struck down a Hawaii statute that would prohibit people from open carry in the state of Hawaii, and my own recollection of Guam law being such that we don't have any restrictions on open carry here. Then Ray said, well, suppose that a person is driving along the highway with his firearm on the seat beside him. And my initial reaction to that was, well, maybe that's a concealed firearm inside the car. But I had to plead ignorance, believe it or not. I had to, for once, probably in the entire history of Tall Tales, come on and say, I really don't know. So Ray suggested that perhaps I dig out the books and go through the books a little bit. And this is what I found out. I was not able to find any restrictions on carrying an open carry anywhere on the island except for our our gun-free school zone law, gun-free school zone act of 2004. You can't take a firearm onto a school unless somebody steals it out of your car, and then I guess it's okay. Because that happened down at Southern High. We found the thief the same day, but when it comes to the person who owned the firearm and or the car, what's the answer? When Officer Paul Tapau explains that one, what's his answer, Real Joe Cruz? Do you remember?
I think he said it was still under investigation.
It's still under investigation. Yeah, it's still under investigation. Yeah. I suppose that the Age Discrimination in Employment Act gets in the way on some of these matters that the police department is handling, because some of their investigations last so long that unless the assigned investigator is in his early 20s, he won't be able to complete his investigation prior to his demise. So I was getting ready to award the Fred Astaire Award to Officer Tapau the last time he came in and tap danced around that one, but we'll see. So anyhow, going through the statutes, I found that, and then I found that we have most of our law deals with issuing of the firearms ID card and the registry of firearms and selling firearms, etc. But we do have a section dealing with concealed firearms, and it says this: a license issued under this section does not authorize any person to openly carry a handgun or carry a concealed firearm into 1, any detention facility, prison, or jail; 2, any courthouse; 3, any courtroom, except that nothing in this section would preclude a judge from carrying a concealed weapon or determining who will carry a concealed weapon in bad language here. Now, you know what it's going to say, in his or her courtroom, when it should say their courtroom, right? Yeah. 4, legislaturen guahan. You can't carry open or concealed. You cannot carry a firearm into legislaturen guahan. 5, private property or business premises where carrying of firearms is prohibited by the property owner, lessee, business owner, and said prohibition is posted on the premises. Are you listening, Cracker Barrel? So when we talked about Cracker Barrel yesterday, I didn't know the answer to that question, but now we do. If you are a private property owner, if you open a business, just as an example, called the Real Joe's Supper Club and Transmission Exchange, you could put a sign on the front door that said, no shoes, no shirt, no guns, right? Or something like that. Yeah. Next item. While under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance. Now, what would an example of a controlled substance be, Real Joe Cruz?
Heroin, sir.
Can you think of any others that might be a little more common?
Methamphetamine, sir.
Try again. That's not...
psychedelic mushrooms, sir.
You want a hint? It starts with M.
M. Midol, sir.
It's probably better than the one I was thinking. Yeah, no one who's
marijuana.
No one who's under the influence of Midol should be allowed to carry a firearm. Good call, Real Joe Cruz. You just got a little bit more than half of my radio listening audience angry at me, but yeah, it is, after all, tall tales. Yeah, marijuana. So if you're under the influence of marijuana, you cannot be parading around with a firearm on your hip. Any place where carrying of firearms is prohibited by federal law. We pay some attention to federal law once in a while. Now, so long as federal law, and what I'm really talking about here, of course, is national law. So long as the national law doesn't prohibit the possession, use, etc., of marijuana or cannabis, then we'll recognize it in our law. Otherwise, we don't need no stinking federal law, right, real Joe Cruz? Okay. And then the gun-free school zone. And then the next one, a person licensed under this section shall not be prohibited from carrying or storing a firearm in a vehicle for lawful purposes. Now, this is a little complicated because this section is 60109.1, and it deals with concealed firearms. Now, I think when they drafted this, I think they meant it should apply to concealed and open. But it says a person shall not be prohibited from carrying or storing a firearm in a vehicle for lawful purposes. Could be a more clearly drafted statute. And then finally, nothing in this statute shall be construed to prohibit a property owner or lessee or residential or business property to carry a firearm, concealed or otherwise, within their own property, they finally got the English right, with a valid non-concealed firearm identification, or allow any person employed or authorized by the owner, etc., to carry a firearm on such premises with a valid non-concealed firearm identification. So what this says is that if in your own house, your own property, if you're, let's make it real. Let's say you're relaxing in the privacy of your own home, enjoying life. You could have a concealed firearm in your pocket at that time, even if you didn't have a concealed ID. That's what this section says. Nothing shall prohibit the owner or lessee of residential, etc., property to carry a firearm, concealed or otherwise. Okay, so that's today's lesson on firearms. So don't take, if you have to go to court for some reason, don't bring your firearm along. If you're going to the legislature, don't take a firearm along. If you see a sign on the front of a business that says no guns allowed, don't go in. Okay, so much for the Second Amendment. Let's turn now to Zemi Ikotny. Our local version of Meet the Press. And I start out with the Daily News. Of course, the real challenge when I do the Daily News is to see how much plagiarism they had to commit in order to crank out an editorial. Well, today they somehow did it. It's apparently their own work, no plagiarism here. And they say feds must establish migrant counting and reimbursement standards. Now, when they talk about migrants, they're talking about people who come from the freely associated states and enter Guam as what are called habitual residents. And here's what the article or the editorial says: as the population of regional migrants on Guam continues to increase, and their story in the paper yesterday said there are over 18,000 regional migrants here now. You know, one of these days we're going to have more regional migrants than the smallest of the Federated States, or Palau, the Republic of Palau. And it also needs to establish clear standards for Guam and other territories affected by the influx of regional migrants, so more accurate information on the monetary impact can be submitted. According to the latest data from the U.S. Census Bureau, Guam is host to about, now here's the number, 18,874 the regional migrants, up from an estimated 17,170 in 2013, a 9% increase. Over 5 years, regional migrants now comprise about 11% of the island's population. Wow! The migrants come from the federated states of Micronesia's Chuuk, Pohnpei, Yap, and Kosrae, along with Palau and the Marshall Islands, all of which have compacts of free association with the United States. Migrants from these regions can live, work, and study in the United States. The U.S. provides funding for Guam, Hawaii, the Northern Marianas, and American Samoa to help defray increased demands on health, education, social services, or infrastructure. The federal government provided just $34 million in fiscal 2019. Guam gets the lion's share, $16.8 million. Given the numbers of regional migrants here and the percentage of the population they make up, Guam should be getting a far larger share. And the funding falls short of full compensation. All affected jurisdictions have said for years the cost of hosting regional migrants is far higher than federal reimbursement. But the U.S. Government Accountability Office, which is the investigative office of Congress, has said Guam and the other jurisdictions with compact migrant populations use unreliable, even faulty methods to count migrants and assess impact. And then the solution is simple. The federal government simply needs to create a method for counting migrants that it deems to be satisfactory. So the way it is now, we have our method of counting up the number of people from the FA freely associated states. We do our best to estimate the cost, the number of inmates in the penitentiary, the number of detainees in the jail, the number of students in the school system, how many people visited the emergency room at the hospital, et cetera. You could kind of figure out how to go about figuring out the impact here. But no matter how we do it, the feds say, no, you're not counting right. And then when Hawaii sends theirs in, no, guys, you're not counting right. So this makes eminently good sense. If there is a particular way that the counting must be done, tell us what that is. Otherwise, what the feds are doing with us is, get out your Law and Order notebooks again here. What the feds are doing is they're practicing dog law. And dog law works like this. When you have a statute that perhaps is not as clear as it could be and not as well publicized as it could be, and every time somebody breaks the law, you punish that person. And the fact that people get punished ultimately causes other people to wake up and stop breaking the law. Kind of like training your dog by every time the dog does something that he shouldn't be doing, you get a stick out and whip him with a stick instead of trying to train the animal with less cruel methods. So it looks like the feds are practicing dog law here. No, we're not going to give you all that money. You counted wrong. Well, we did it a little different. We did it different last year, and you said that was wrong, so we changed it, and we're doing it this way this year. Oh, you're still doing it wrong. Until you do it right, we're not going to give you any more money. Well, how should we do it? Well, you got to do it right. That's kind of what they're saying. So, good call, Daily News. You put your finger on a pretty interesting problem that needs to be called to the attention of the national government. Maybe you could get USA Today to run that same editorial so that some folks in Washington might take a peek at it. Maybe not. Okay, and then we go to the Post. Officials shouldn't withhold the release of public records. The good news is more people are now paying attention to or are more aware of Guam's open government law, which, among other things, forbids closed-door and secret government meetings when decisions involving bonuses and pay raises are discussed. Editorial said more people are aware, but apparently not enough. I know of 5 whose awareness level didn't meet the satisfactory criterion. Guam's open government law also requires government boards and commissions to keep records, including transcripts and audio recording of what was discussed in these meetings. The audio recording of each meeting shall be provided to the Office of Public Accountability within 7 calendar days after the meeting, the open government law requires. And if the topics of these meetings require discussions behind closed doors, including when a legal matter is at issue, the minutes of these meetings should be preserved and made available to anyone among members of the public who ask for the records or transcripts 6 months after the closed-door meeting was held. Now, I got to stop here again. That only applies to what I'm going to say right after the break here.
2-for-1 dinner time is back at Ruby Tuesday Guam. That's 2 fresh garden bars, 2 tasty entrees, and a sweet dessert to share for just $25.99. 2-for-1 dinner time for a limited time at Ruby Tuesday Guam.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, so the minutes of an executive session are immediately available with only one exception. That is if the board that holds the executive session is discussing a pending legal matter or an impending legal matter or legal strategy. And if that's the case, then that board or commission has a lot of hoops to jump through. They have to have a certificate from counsel. They have to have a court reporter. They've got to transcribe the minutes, etc. But that's the only time you have that 6-month sequester provision. Otherwise, no. And that occurs very, very seldom. But unfortunately, this exception in the popular mind seems to be equated with the rule when it's not. Even Simon Sanchez said, well, you know, on the 27th of this month, the gag ends. Well, the gag ended the day after he had the meeting, assuming that the minutes were prepared, because you weren't discussing a legal case or legal strategy. Going back to the editorial here. The issue of government transparency or secrecy has come to light following the Consolidated Commission Utilities' denial of request for the release of records of closed-door meeting on bonuses and pay raises held in November 2018. We applaud CCU Commissioner Simon Sanchez, who recently said the recordings of the meetings will be releasable in 2 weeks by May 27. Well, Simon was wrong, but at least he realizes that the minutes ought to be released. 2 weeks when the 6-month confidentiality period runs out, which doesn't apply here, but still he's right by saying they should be released. However, CCU Chairman Joey Dueña said he's not, quote, comfortable, close quote, releasing the records. So I once again, I've scanned the statutes yesterday, this morning when I was looking around for the rules on firearms and concealed carry. I went through the entire code and I couldn't find anywhere in the laws of Guam that indicates that the comfort level of a member of a board or commission should have any bearing on his decision-making ability. But apparently Joey's the exception here. He prefers going to court before the records are released. So, Joey, that's not what you're there for. And next time you guys want to raise the rates, are you going to say, oh, I'm not comfortable raising the rates. I want a judge to tell me that it's okay to raise the rates. We hope the rest of the commissioners agree with Sanchez, and we know from yesterday that one of them does. Mike Limtiaco agrees with Sanchez. They seem to be aware of the personal monetary fine they face if they violate the open government law, in addition to facing the risk of a misdemeanor charge. The open government law must be respected by those holding office. At least one recent judge in a new order on another government agency isn't pleased with a particular agency on the brink of being held in violation of the law. Just this past Tuesday, Judge Anita Sokola, in an order in A.B. Wonpat Airport, authorities' continued refusal to release a transcript of a crucial board meeting that may be related to the airport's selection of a duty-free retail concession contractor in a $125 million contract, signaled she has lost patience with the airport's failure to release the public records. That's Judge Anita Sokola. Sokola's May 14 order states, the court finds that GIA's lack of diligence and candor was a deliberate strategy to avoid compliance with the open government law. The court will not allow GIAA to act in bad faith and yet achieve its goal of keeping the transcript sealed. To ensure future compliance, the court finds that the appropriate sanction for GIAA's conduct is the production of the transcript. Sokola has scheduled a June 27 hearing for the airport to explain, according to Sokola, why it should not be held in contempt of court. The public needs an open and transparent government. If there's nothing to hide, what's the problem with releasing records to the public? And I'm going to repeat that line again. The public needs open and transparent government. If there's nothing to hide, what's the problem with releasing records to the public? So I'm going to go into that DFS GIAA case when we get to the card. I've read Judge Sokola's decision, and I'll go into it in greater depth, but I'll give you a preview right now. It does not rely on the use of the word comfort to reach its result. So I think that perhaps one thing that everyone will learn, even the CCU, maybe even Joey Duenas, that the comfort level of a board member or a commissioner is not sufficient reason to violate the law. Okay, well, how many times have I said this before? I go through the editorials. I try to judge them on their merits. You don't necessarily have to be in line with my thinking to get the Blue Star. It helps. And even if you're not in line with my thinking, you can still get the Blue Star. But today, we've got a really well-written editorial, a little bit of a flub there on the 6 months and the sequestering, but I'll let it go. And certainly this editorial is, or perhaps I should say that I am in line with its editorial, with its policy. The public needs an open and transparent government. If there's nothing to hide, what's the problem with releasing records to the public? So without further ado, the Blue Star goes to the Post. Yeah, I hope I haven't lost my score sheet here. Probably have. I think that takes the Post up to, yeah, here's my score sheet. Yeah, that brings the Post up to 114 blue stars. To the Daily News, 41. So the Post is way, way ahead. Of course, the Daily News has got something that the Post has never received, and that is that the Daily News has received 2 red Ps. I got a feeling the folks over at the Post are not jealous or envious about that. Okay, so from there, let's go to the card. And this is what I got on the card today. I've got, start out with go national for, I like to go national once in a while, if for no other reason, because the Democrats are so entertaining. Where else could you find, now that Abbott and Costello are as you were, now that Carol Burnett and Judy Canova and female comedians of that ilk have passed from amongst our midst, where else could you find anybody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to deliver stand-up comic lines other than in the Democratic Party? And I don't want to give short shrift to Pocahontas, who is pretty darn humorous herself, or Nancy Pelosi, who kind of has a dry sense of humor, right? So I like to turn to national news once in a while. So the top item on the card is U.S. versus environmental wackos. And then the next item on the card is CCU wackos versus Mike Limtiaco. Now, yesterday, when Mike Limtiaco heard his name on the radio, he called up right away. And we got to give Mike Limtiaco credit for having a lot of courage. There aren't a whole lot of politicians or quasi-politicians that want to call tall tales and submit themselves to the scathing cross-examination of the host. But Mike just stepped right up to the plate, just like he were Jack Haddock, and took a couple of good, healthy cuts at the ball. So good for Mike. So the second item is CCU wackos versus Mike Limtiaco. Then we've got DFS versus GIA, which I mentioned earlier. And we've got the News versus Justice Torres. Melvin Wonpat Bora versus Apathy. I've got Tlaib versus America, if we get that far. Left versus Trump. Lincoln versus Robert Underwood. Fernandez versus Wonpat, but we probably won't get that far today. So let me start out with the United States versus environmental wackos. And the title of the article that ran in a website called PJ Media is Blowhard Democrats Are Green Phonies. Now, I get my blue pencil out here. There may be a redundancy in the first 2 words. Blowhard Democrats. I think if they just said blowhards or just Democrats, everyone would know exactly who the article's talking about. But here it goes. Listening to politicians expound on the imminent dangers of that neologism, climate change, you wonder if any of these people could even pass a high school physics test. Yeah, maybe Rand Paul could. He's an ophthalmologist. Rand Paul, a lot of the time, sees quite clearly. Well, he's an ophthalmologist. He had to take some chemistry, but most of them, Nevertheless, the Democrat Party at the moment seems to be in a knockdown, drag-out fight for who can be the greenest of the green and push us forward to a brave new world propelled exclusively by solar and wind energy. Only the strongest, that is most slavishly devoted to renewable energy at all costs will survive. Bernie and AOC, Bernie, that's Bernie Sanders. Whenever his name is mentioned, it's appropriate to say, can you feel the burn? Bernie and AOC are currently beating up Joe Biden over the head about this. Poor Joe is frantically shoring up his environmental credentials. If you don't have a dog in this fight, it's kind of funny. But the least these scientific illiterates might do is read a recent Forbes article titled "The Reason Renewables Can't Power Modern Civilization is Because They Were Never Meant to." Yeah, I know many of them don't care about modern civilization, at least until they have to catch a plane. Michael Schellenberger writes, over the last decade, journalists have held up Germany's renewable energy transition, the Energiewende, as an environmental model for the world. Many poor countries, once intent on building coal-fired power plants to bring electricity to their people, are discussing whether they might leapfrog the fossil age and build clean grids from the outset, thanks to the Energiewende, wrote a New York Times reporter in 2014. With Germany as inspiration, the United Nations and World Bank poured billions into renewables like wind, solar, and hydro in developing nations like Kenya. But then last year, Germany was forced to acknowledge that it had to delay the phase out of coal and would not meet its 2020 greenhouse gas reduction commitments. It announced plans to bulldoze an ancient church and forest in order to get at the coal underneath it. Whoops. What the Germans discovered is that this stuff, renewable energy, doesn't actually work anywhere to the extent necessary. They tried it. I doubt this would mean much to the true believers like Bernie and AOC, but the rest of us might pay attention. In fact, it's worse. And then comes a major article in the country's largest weekly magazine, Der Spiegel, titled "A Botched Job in Germany." The magazine's cover shows broken wind turbines, and incomplete electrical transmission towers against a dark silhouette of Berlin. Over the past 5 years alone, the Energiewende has cost Germany 32 billion euros. That's 36 billion bucks annually, and opposition to renewables is growing. Germany is one of the most technological advanced countries, but despite this failure, this is where the Democrats want to take us. It's an act of faith, not science. They are effectively being anti-science, preaching their brand of environmentalism as a religion. Let me reemphasize that now. That the environmental wackos on the left are preaching their brand of environmentalists, the Green New Deal, as though it were a religion. You've got to have faith. If you're going to be properly rewarded, you got to be a believer. This has been evident for some time now, but it's reaching a level that is actually deleterious to what they claim to desire. Intelligent, less apocalyptic evaluations of climate, like Denmark's Bjorn Lomborg, are snuffed out or ignored by a Democratic Party that seems to be engaged in a modern form of know-nothingism. In order to be a candidate for president on the Democrat ticket, you got to be able to show that you don't know anything. Some of them are pretty good at making that showing. Suffering most in this are young people who are discouraged from thinking for themselves, which is actually what the scientific method is all about. But all is not lost. Now, here comes the interesting part. Guess who is leading the world in the direction of creating a healthy environment? Now, we can't tell Bernie and AOC about this because we wouldn't want to spoil their dream. But according to our own EPA data, greenhouse gas emissions in the United States are dropping. Despite having a so-called climate change denier in the White House, along with a complicit Congress, the United States is leading the way in cutting greenhouse gases, which the bureaucrats at the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change say causes global warming. How did this happen? Yeah, we'll forget for a moment whether greenhouse gases actually are that bad. But how did this all happen? How did our gas emissions go down? Well, after this break, I'm going to tell you, and then we'll get right up there to that big halftime show that Janae's been waiting for all afternoon. Right, yeah.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data-to-Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data-to-Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Whether you're going grocery shopping, taking the kids to the mall, or going to work, you need a reliable car that can take you where you need to go. A reliable car also needs reliable insurance. Let Nanbo Insurance make your auto insurance easy and uncomplicated. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
So how did it happen that the United States is one of the leaders when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas? Well, it's magic. It's called the free market. The free market, private companies figuring out how to make life better for us all and making a profit. You're never supposed to do that. Making a profit is just not fair. Businessmen, businesses that are concerned with profit should be thinking more about people. Doing something for themselves and us all at once, sort of like Thomas Edison or Alexander Graham Bell, the guy that invented the light bulb, the guy that invented the telephone. People of that sort, not bloviating politicians, will be the ones who invent the energy sources of the future. And meanwhile, not to worry, despite what the Democrat Party and the enviro profiteers at the UN tell us, we have plenty of time. Back in 1982, the United Nations Environment Program's executive director, Mustafa Tolba, warned, quote, by the turn of the century, that's been over 19 years ago now, by the turn of the century, an environmental collapse, an environmental catastrophe, which will witness devastation as complete, as irreversible as any nuclear holocaust. He said that's what we would see in the year 2000. Well, I was there in 2000. I remember sitting there watching the clock and watching the second hand go and seeing one millennium come to an end and another millennium start. And I didn't see that great disaster come around. It's kind of like some of these old Bible thumpers used to say, the end is near. Give us all your money. The world will end on Tuesday in February, the first Tuesday in February. And somehow it never happened. So that's That's what I got to say about blowhard Democrats and this item on the card called U.S. versus Environmental Wackos. And from there, I'm going to go to the CCU wackos versus Mike Limtiaco. And I have reported to you, actually the Post reported to you that Joey Duenas, who is the chairman of the CCU, who led the CCU into an executive session on the 17th of, as you were, the 27th of November last, to discuss salary increases for some key employees at the two utilities. They came out of the executive session and took 22 seconds to adopt a motion, or to pass a motion to adopt what they discussed in executive session, suggesting they must have had minutes of at least who got what salary increase, because the raises were put in place on January 1. So that passed without anyone noticing until a eagle-eyed reporter for the Post found out about the raises and mentioned that it was done in executive session. So when that came up, that it was done in executive session, of course, the law is really clear. Under no circumstances may salary increases be discussed in executive session. It's got to be done out in the open. So this was brought to Joey Duenas' attention, and Joey kind of did one of those 21st century apologies, one of those kind of like, well, I don't think I did that, but if I did, I'm really sorry. You know how we do that nowadays, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, I don't have a recollection of that, but if I did it, I'm sorry. Well, Joey changed it a little bit. He said, "Yeah, we should not have discussed salaries in executive session. Where I made my mistake, we were evaluating the employees, which was okay, and then I should have come out of executive session, but I didn't. So it's my error." It was his error to do the whole thing in executive session, unless he would have you believe that somehow you can reach a decision on a salary increase for an employee without evaluating his performance. So I think what Joey, my mental image of what Joey is suggesting is that they go through all of that evaluation and then they come out in open session and a member says, I move that we give John Beneventi a $25,000 bonus. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. I don't think that's what the law comes close to contemplating. Oh, shucks. I need the password, Real Joe Cruz.
For what?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right in. We're about to take a break, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's break for halftime here, and you can come in here and get my call board set up, okay? And who's on the line?
Oh, that was Ken LG, but he was about to go into a meeting, and I told him we were going to take a break.
Oh, okay.
He said he'll try and call back after the break.
All right, good enough. So, can we take the break now?
Yeah, we can.
All right.
Okay.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Toughest in the nation, I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. Alabama's governor signs a law that makes performing an abortion criminal in nearly all cases.
Governor Kay Ivey tweeting the bill is a testament to Alabamians' deeply held belief that every life is precious and that every life is a sacred gift from God. The law bans all abortions except to save the mother's life. The state Senate rejecting an amendment from Democrat Bobby Singleton to include exceptions for rape and incest.
To those of you who have a baby girl, just close your eyes for a moment and think about, because it's possible that it could happen.
Opponents plan to challenge the law in court. Supporters say they'll take any challenge all the way to the Supreme Court. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
The White House is under pressure to share more about what's happening with Iran.
Senior State Department officials say there's an increased threat stream directly linked to Iran. They say it's real and it would amount to negligence to keep non-essential employees working in U.S. diplomatic compounds in Iraq. So, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo ordered those workers out this morning. The senior Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez, says the Trump administration has yet to provide any information to the committee on the intelligence behind the decision.
Fox's Rich Edson at the State Department. President Trump issued an executive order banning American companies from using telecommunications equipment from firms that pose a national security threat. The administration lobbied allied nations to not use equipment from Chinese tech giant Huawei. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai praised the order on Fox's Your World with Neil Cavuto.
We need to have a crystal clear view of the threats that we face and take action that is necessary to meet those threats. This executive order, our decision on China Mobile, these are all steps that show the U.S. government takes this threat seriously.
Huawei says it's ready to work with the U.S. government. A Wisconsin firefighter was killed in the line of duty. The Appleton firefighter was shot while responding to a medical emergency. This is Fox News.
Travel the world and then some with the 2 million United Miles sweepstakes from First Hawaiian Bank. Enter and you could win the grand prize of 1 million miles or be one of 6 other lucky winners. The world is big. Our prize is bigger. Enter at fhb.com/2 million miles. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Sweepstake starts on May 1st and ends June 30th, 2019. Open to legal residents of Guam and CNMI. Ages 18 years or older. Visit 2millionmiles.com for official rules. First Hawaiian Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 data-to-go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is data-to-go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Lawmakers want answers from the FAA following the deadly crashes of 2 Boeing 737 MAX jets.
Republicans and Democrats expressing concern about the FAA and its relationship with Boeing.
A recent Wall Street Journal article reported an internal FAA review concluded the agency itself failed to perform proper oversight.
Democrat House Aviation Subcommittee Chair Rick Larson citing a review that says the FAA did not participate in or monitor critical safety assessments of a flight control system for the MAX jets, later implicated in 2 crashes. Boeing is expected to submit a fix of that system as early as next week. Acting FAA head Daniel Elway pledging to work with pilots following the rollout.
We'll determine what level of training will be required of 737 MAX pilots.
The Boeing MAX jets have been grounded since March. It's unclear when the planes will go back in service. Tom Graham, Fox News.
A popular e-cigarette maker is facing a legal battle. North Carolina's Attorney General is suing Juul to limit what flavors it can sell and ensure underage teens can't buy its vaping products. He says Juul's marketing practices targets young people, but Juul says the company is working to reduce youth vaping. Some salads and wraps at Whole Foods markets are not safe to eat.
Houston-based GHSW is one of the vendors to Whole Foods, and they're recalling products from certain stores in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. Apparently, some of the labels don't mention that there's soy in the mayonnaise, and that could actually be deadly to someone with an allergy. The products listed include some salad bowls, potato salad, tuna salad wraps, traditional egg salad, and some of their pasta salad. John Saucier, Fox News.
A death row inmate in Tennessee is giving his last meal to the homeless. Don Johnson is set to be put to death Thursday for the 1984 murder of his wife. Johnson's attorney says he realizes the $20 allotment will not feed many homeless people, so he's asking his supporters to provide a meal to the homeless as well. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
Okay, I think it's coming up soon.
Yeah, we're in Route 1 and near the airport intersection, right?
There, see it? What's the promo code? Look for the promo code.
Check out the Vantage Digital Billboard and reap the rewards. Catch the promo code on the screen and get $10 off your stroll ride by inputting the promo code on the Stroll Guam app.
Did you see it?
You got it. I got it. You just focus on driving.
Take advantage today and take a look at Vantage Advertising's digital billboard located on Route 1 at the airport intersection.
Well, that ends our big halftime show that everybody likes so much, including me and the real Joe Cruz. And here we are in the second half of Tall Tales. And the item on the card I'm working on right now is CCU Wackos versus Mike Limtiaco. And I'm once again reviewing for you the chairperson of the CCU's remarks as reported in the Post. That all goes to Joey Duenas' comfort. Joey says, Duenas said he was not comfortable releasing anything. Quote, I think the best thing to do is go to court and let the judge decide if those salary things are releasable and let him do the releasing. So the next, when you run for re-election, Joey, just hope that there aren't any judges running against you. Because apparently you don't want to do your job. You want a judge to do it for you. And then you say, I don't want the liability of inadvertently releasing something by mistake. So did you ask the battery of lawyers that you've now put on the public payroll what kind of liability you would have if you discussed an employee evaluation out in public? And I got a sneaking suspicion the answer would be none, because one, when you're in a governmental meeting like this, assuming that you're not violating the law, there's a privilege that applies to what you're doing. Second, if all you're doing is talking about a performance evaluation, you can't do a salary adjustment without discussing performance evaluation. I think you're a suit is more likely if you arbitrarily say, well, we've got two managers here, and I'm going to give one manager a $20,000 raise. I'm not going to give the other one anything at all. What's your reason? Well, I'm just not going to do it. Kind of the same approach that Joey's taking on releasing of documents. So I'm going to come back to Joey in a minute, and I noticed, I guess you opened up the Tom line finally, huh? Okay, we got Dr. Tom Poole on the line. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon, Judge. Actually, you don't have to leave Mr. Duenas at all because I had lunch with him today and had the pleasure of sitting next to Mr. Duenas and Miguel Bordallo both. And they were in fairly intense conversation. And if you can believe it, twice I heard them use the word hitman. Now, Judge, I never heard your name mentioned, but I heard Miguel say, "What about that Joe Cruz?" And Mr. Duenas said, "Sure, him too." So I don't know what that might mean. It might have been a completely different Joe Cruz, Judge.
Well, you know, there is the real Joe Cruz, and then there's another Joe Cruz, and I always make that distinction, but perhaps Bordallo doesn't listen often enough to make that distinction. So hitman Joe Cruz, huh?
Well, I'm just telling you what I heard, Judge.
Okay.
They weren't talking to me. I was just sitting there, but Miguel gave really a very interesting presentation on the Water Authority and what they are doing and trying to do, and it was pretty convincing. I think he's an awfully sharp cookie, and I just have sort of high hopes. And of course, as you know, he immediately returned his bonus.
Returned or offered to return?
No, he returned. He wrote the check and gave it to him that night. Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, it wasn't an offer. He returned it.
Okay.
So, anyway, just wanted to share that with you, Judge, for your edification and possible caution.
Well, you know, the real Joe Cruz always draws a lot of attention to himself. So
okay.
If the folks out there in the hinterlands want to consider him to be the hitman here on Tall Tales, I guess I'll just have to let him go, huh?
That wasn't my impression that he was the hitman. It was
somebody
said, yeah, him too, kind of like maybe a twofer or something.
Oh, okay, that there was a hitman, and then there's also his sidekick, the real Joe Cruz, huh?
That's a possibility.
Okay, riding shotgun, as it were.
Yes, sir. But this, I don't know. This maybe. I'm not casting aspersions here on the character of Mr. Duenas or Mr. Bordallo. Just telling you what little bit I overheard.
Well, I appreciate it. Now, as far as Miguel Bordallo and his plans for the waterworks, et cetera, you know, I felt kind of the same way when these guys pulled this shenanigan with the minutes as I felt when David Cruz tried to run for public office and hang on to his job at the Department of Education. I don't know if you remember that. But I said on the air, I said, you know, David Cruz is going to run with Dennis Rodriguez. And I'm so happy to hear that. Because David Cruz is a military, he's a retiree. He did a long stretch in the National Guard. He's a teacher, et cetera. He's not a professional politician. I'm really glad to see him throw his hat in the ring. And then it turns out that he and Rodriguez had thought they'd cooked up some kind of scheme where Cruz could stay on the payroll and run for public office. And it just shattered my illusion right on the spot. And with the CCU, I've been a champion of the CCU on more than one occasion, comparing Power and Water now to what it was like before the CCU, comparing the openness of at least some of the board members. So I've been a real fan of the CCU up until this happened. But when Joey Duenas comes out and says, talks about his comfort and I'm not going to release anything to anybody. I'll let the judge release it. It's just such a poor performance. And it's, again, I guess I feel kind of the same way I felt when, I got to be in my mid-teens and my folks told me there really wasn't a Santa Claus. Mid-teens. If you know what I mean, Tom. Did I lose Tom?
I don't know. Maybe the hitman got him.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe the hitman over GTA got him, huh? Okay, well, thanks a lot for calling in, Tom. You know, going back to Will Rogers, I never met a Tom I didn't like to talk to. Okay, so going back here to Joey Duenas, in this item on the card, CCU Wackos versus Mike Limtiaco. Duenas said, I think the best thing to do is go to court and let the judge decide if those salary things are releasable and let him do the releasing. I don't want the liability of inadvertently releasing something by mistake. Something. Well, what is it that you're afraid of releasing? You know, I could see if you said, if the minute showed this, I don't want to give Mr. X a raise because I told him if he really wants a raise, he better pony up and buy, and buy my daughter a really nice graduation present. And he never bought anything. So I don't want him to get a raise. I could see you not wanting that to come out. But if all you're doing in that meeting is what you said, Joey, is evaluating the employees, I don't see how there could possibly be any liability. And if you're that concerned about it, you should have asked the lawyers that trotted through your shop there. Instead of saying, is there some way that you could help us avoid releasing anything? Because I don't want to release anything unless the judge tells me to. You could have said, can we release this stuff? Is there a downside risk if we release this? How can we best go about releasing this information and complying with the Sunshine Law? That's what you could have done instead of this wacko performance that we're looking at here. And then he also says, oh, we'll go to court. Well, if you're going to go to court, you got to sue somebody. You can't write a letter that says, Dear Judge Sukola, we have a really interesting question here that we'd like you to answer. Doesn't work that way. Judges decide cases and controversies, so you got to sue somebody. So who are you going to sue in order to get a ruling on this wacko question of Joey's? Me? The hitman? The real Joe Cruz? Who is it that you're going to sue? This whole thing just doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm going to come back to the other half of the card here, CCU blowhards versus Mike Limtiaco. But first, I've got Real Tom on the line here, right? Good afternoon, Tom.
How you doing?
Good. Since the real Joe Cruz opened up the Tom line, I'm getting some calls here.
You know, Mr. Duenas is afraid to release the minutes because he might take the fifth. He might say, I don't want to release this because it might incriminate me.
In effect, that's exactly what he's doing. He's taking a bureaucratic fifth.
Yeah. Anyway, my question is, that's been going through my mind is, what accountability are we going to hold those legal counsels for the CCU? Because they were being paid a salary to advise the commission on what is legal to do and what is not legal to do. But yet they gave the wrong advice evidently.
Well, I suppose
accountable for their action or illegal action or illegal advice? Or?
Well, I wouldn't say they didn't give them a proper advice as to what was legal. So I guess what the CCU could do is if they ever move past where they are now, they could go into executive session and talk about lowering the attorneys' salaries.
Either that or get different attorneys.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that they can't, reasons that they can go into executive session is for the dismissal of an employee. That's legal.
Yeah. But anyway, I was wondering if maybe in the future, maybe tomorrow when you get a chance, or maybe next week, can you educate the public more about implied consent? I understand a little bit about it as far as the vehicle is concerned, that if you have a driver's license and you take the privilege of driving on a public highway, you consent to search if there's a probable cause because there's somebody witness you weaving on the road, that's probable cause.
What you've consented to is the blood alcohol measurement, Tom. That's what you've impliedly consented to.
Okay, so nobody can refuse that. But why is it that sometimes in the news I see people being pulled over for suspicion of drunk driving because they were weaving on the road? Then they found in the vehicle some contraband, like illegal drugs. There's no probable cause that they had the illegal drugs in there. The only probable cause for them to be pulled over is evidence of intoxication.
True, and so many of the articles that I read in the newspaper sound like this. So-and-so was pulled over because he was apparently DWI. Officer X asked if he could search the driver's car, and the driver consented. So there's a consensual search. The cop finds contraband in there. Then he's got his probable cause to make an arrest.
All right. Okay. Yeah. If the driver consented, yes.
Yeah. Or if the police officer looks through the window of the car and sees a pipe laying on the seat, is an old saying: a policeman's eye commits no trespass.
Right. Okay. Okay. But there are some cases where a case will be thrown out if supposing somebody reported you to having an illegal gun in your vehicle, and you get pulled over, and they're searching for the pistol, and so they open the glove box because that glove box is big enough to contain the pistol, but yet they open up a matchbox full of methamphetamine, so they arrest that person for possession of methamphetamine. That's not legal, right? Because the item to be searched and seized cannot fit in a matchbox.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good statement of the law. Maybe like this: and so-and-so's got an illegal rifle in his car, and you look in the guy's wife's purse to see if the rifle's in her purse.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks. I'll be listening again. Thanks, Bob.
I hope that you're not going to try any of these things at home, Tom.
No, nothing. It's just that I've been hearing a lot, and I've been seeing a lot in the paper about people being found methamphetamine or illegal drugs in their vehicle, but yet they were only stopped at the checkpoint,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they gave consent to search their vehicle. I don't know. I wasn't there, so. All right. I'll talk to you later, my friend.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Okay.
Okay, so we've been through this now. So we had the illegal meeting back in November, and then we've had two meetings since then. And the major feature of the two meetings is blowhard Joey Duenas, and I'm not going to turn over anything. Let a judge tell us, and advice from counsel. We'll take this matter to court, etc. But yesterday, I saw a ray of sunshine peeking through these dark clouds, and the ray of sunshine was Mike Limtiaco, the newest member of the commission, called up, and he said he wants to release the minutes, and he's made a motion to do it, but he doesn't have the votes. Well, so good for Mike Limtiaco. I'm very much hopeful that Mike continues on with his efforts, if for no other reason than a reason personal to him. At least he's protecting his record by voting right. Mike also released a bombshell yesterday, and that was that he wasn't on the commission in November. He was elected in November and wasn't seated until January. He has not been able to see the minutes himself. So, once again, causing me to say, Joey Duenas, what are you trying to hide? That even Mike Limtiaco, a member of the commission, can't see those minutes. I think it's time to put the foolishness to an end and for the CCU is meeting again on Tuesday, and for some public-spirited citizen to say, I move to release the minutes and the recording to the people who filed FOIAs and anybody else that wants it. We are public businesses. We're public servants. We were doing the public's business. There's no personal privacy involved here. There's no unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. All we're doing is burning up a lot of money for legal fees that we could better spend somewhere else. So I move that the records be released. That's what you could do, guys. Even Joey, you could even do that and perhaps redeem a little bit of your credibility. You've thrown so much of it away that it's hard to say if you could redeem it or not. I'm just peeking out of the corner of my eye here, and I see a note from Simon. Let's see what Simon has to say. About to step into a meeting on my real job. I did want to let you know that I agree with Commissioner Limtiaco and you that there would be no harm nor illegal act in releasing the executive minutes. I plan to introduce or support a motion to release on Tuesday. Thanks for your advocacy. I appreciate there may be differences in legal opinions, but if we are to err, I would rather err on the side of transparency to the public. Had we been told last November the under no circumstances clause, all of this would have been done in public. I'm not sure how you can separate the establishment of someone's pay in public from evaluation and justification for any changes in pay. Well, can we have a round of applause for Simon? Very good. Yeah, thank you, Real Joe. Thank you very much, Simon. You're right on target. And it's good to know that we have public-spirited citizens who understand the public serving in these positions. So I'll be waiting for next Tuesday's meeting with bated breath. And I'm like seeing something else over here in the corner. Is Joe Duenas the little bold guy with golden rim glasses that prances around at the cathedral every Sunday? I don't know. I don't know if he is or not. I don't go to Mass at the cathedral. But an interesting question. Pierre Terrine says, is Joe... Oh, no, that's Pierre's question. I don't know, Pierre. Someone more familiar with Sunday Mass at the cathedral will have to fill in that blank for us. Okay, so I think Simon's statement is a pretty nice way to end this item on the card. Another huge ray of sunshine shining through some rather dark clouds. Okay, next I'm going to go to DFS versus GIAA. And this is a story that appeared in the Daily News, and I think the Post covered it also. Guam Airport provided false information to the court in a deliberate attempt to violate the island's open government law, according to Superior Court Judge Anita Sokola, who said she's considering holding the airport in contempt. At issue are transcripts from an executive session of the airport's board on April 26, which DFS Guam had requested as part of the procurement protests against the airport. Under Guam law, transcripts of government executive sessions become public documents 6 months after the meeting was held, according to the judge. Well, that's not right. Those executive sessions held with a lawyer to discuss litigation, court cases, etc. Not every single executive session. I guess just got to keep pounding away on that. You know, maybe I could hire a skywriter. You know, those planes that fly through the air and trail smoke out, and maybe I could hire a skywriter that says no 6 months rule for executive sessions. Yeah, something like that. DFS, which has challenged the airport's 2012 decision to award its luxury goods concession to Lotte Free, asked for the executive session transcripts tapes in November 2018, but the airport denied the request. The April 23 executive session is potentially significant to the procurement appeal because the airport board in April 2018 agreed to waive $175,000 of Lotte's monthly rent for 2 years, according to court documents. Compliance with open government law. Sokola said the airport filed a misleading compliance report, which omitted the fact that the transcript of the April 26 executive session had not been released more than 6 months after the meeting was held. The airport did not have the transcript because the court reporter hadn't completed it. This lack of candor is concerning and suggests that GIAA was using a delay in preparing the transcript to its advantage in avoiding compliance with the open government law. Judges don't like it when people don't, when government agencies don't comply with the open government law. I haven't seen any judge come out and say, well, you didn't comply with it, but I'm going to recommend to the governor that he give you the Medal of Freedom. Okay, we're coming up on the 7th inning stretch. We'll come back to this after that, and then maybe we'll get into Melvin Juan-Pat Bora versus apathy.
2-for-1 dinner time is back at Ruby Tuesday Guam. That's 2 fresh garden bars, 2 tasty entrees, and a sweet dessert to share for just $25.99. 2-for-1 dinner time for a limited time at Ruby Tuesday Guam.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, and the Post pretty much said the same thing about the same story here. They both covered it pretty well. On November 20, 2018, DFS filed a request for the release of the meeting's minutes. 8 days later, GIA declined, saying the minutes are exempt from public disclosure and they would be seeking a court order to further seal the executive session transcript because the minutes are protected under the attorney-client exception. So the Post got it right, the Daily News got it wrong. The authority maintains it has complied with the open government law. Judge Sokola disagreed, stating the court will not allow GIA to act in bad faith and yet achieve its goal of keeping the transcript sealed. So, once again, an agency that doesn't comply with the open government law gets spanked. There's a case that goes back a while that I'm familiar with called Duty Free. I think it's part of the same series of cases, and there's a little bit here that compares the open government law with the Sunshine Law, and I'll just take a minute to read it to show how the two fit together. The court will first evaluate the language of the two relevant statutes. The Sunshine Reform Act of 1999 provides that every person has the right to inspect and take a copy of any public document on Guam, except as otherwise expressly permitted. That's an important word, expressly permitted. And again, the word comfort isn't in there. Expressly prohibited in law and except as provided in section 1018 of this chapter. That section provides that nothing in this chapter shall be construed to require disclosure of records pertaining to pending litigation to which an agency is a party until pending litigation has been finally adjudicated or otherwise settled. That's the litigation exception, the attorney-client exception. Furthermore, Section 10108 provides that all existing privileges or confidential records or information expressly protected under the law shall not be abrogated by this act. The open government law, on the other hand, provides in the following part. Under no circumstances shall a public agency hold an executive or closed meeting to discuss legal matters, impending legal matters, or legal strategies with an attorney, except as herein provided below. All such discussions must be held in a public meeting, and minutes shall be kept and open to the public except as herein provided. 2, only matters directly relating to ongoing litigation or litigation which has been threatened is reasonably may be discussed. Only the attorney, the court reporter, board members, and the executive director may attend the meeting. 3, a verbatim transcript by an authorized court reporter must be taken of all meetings which are closed to discuss litigation. 6, there shall be public minutes made of all executive sessions indicating the existence of the transcript, the subject matter of the meeting, if not confidential, the names of all persons attending the meeting, etc. 7, the transcript shall be sealed for a period of 6 months, etc. The court finds that Section 8111 of the Open Government Law provides a clear exception to the Sunshine Act's limitation on the right to inspect records pertaining to litigation. Section 8111 expressly states that executive sessions to discuss legal matters must either be held in a public manner or held in a private session in which transcripts may be taken by a reporter. The transcript of a closed executive session must then be sealed, etc. Contrary to defendant's position that the Sunshine Act alone governs the disclosure of public documents, the court finds that both the Sunshine Act and the Open Government Law must be viewed in tandem. And that's the part I wanted to get to. You got to read the two statutes together. So, yeah, you can go into executive session if you're not going to discuss litigation. You can go into executive session. You can discuss the termination of an employee. You can discuss public complaints. You can't discuss anything that would get into personal privacy. But you can't discuss anything that you want to and label it was a personnel matter. And that's kind of the beauty of that section there that said that you got to read the two statutes in tandem. So once again, the handwriting is on the wall, Joey. Maybe we could get Mike, as we're Jim Moylan to introduce another bill to change the sign law so we could put up one of these electric signs somewhere in Marine Corps Drive that says, obey the Open Government Law, obey the Sunshine Law. Because apparently the handwriting on the wall isn't clear enough for Joey to see that he's dead wrong, and the courts do not look with favor on public officials that thumb their nose at the Open Government Law. Okay, so I've got about 20 more minutes. I think I'll take a look at Facebook here and see what pithy comments. Clarification: I do not have a lisp. Pithy comments I can find here. No surprise, Brad Hewitt is locked and loaded. And Nate horns in, just telling us he's checking in. Albert Eliasson gives us a hand. Our Carl says that he's shocked and bloated, having a little fun with Brad, I guess. And Patrick Iriarte, Guam is that corrupted. Fire away. This message has been forwarded to North Korea's news organization. Whoa. And then Nate horns in and says, I'm uncomfortable with them not releasing the record. So that should do it, right? I'll just send a note. Dear Joey, Nate Horn is uncomfortable because you're not releasing the records. Denise Legaspi signs in and says, our congressman is right in the middle of the nuts. That goes back to my reading concerning Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And then Richard Leone, selective FOIA. GIA management follows the PARI connections and familiar name Politrix handbook. Just saying. And then Ishmael Velez, Jenna likes the halftime show. Ray doesn't know who Jenna is. And knocking on Ray's door and asking for Jenna is not a very good idea. Because Ray does more than pay lip service to the Second Amendment. So Ishmael, if you have a chance, whisper in Jenna's ear and tell her not to send any of her friends over to Ray's house looking for her. Brad Hewitt, the legislature is in session, or its session is on. Sorry, Bob, going back and forth with my attention. Glad you are on so I can recharge lost brain cells that were wasted on the hearings. You got to do what you got to do, Brad. And Denise said they do it because they know the people will object. Brad, hello, Robert Lancy. Glad to see you here. Robert Lancy. I don't know, Robert Lancy. And I don't see any comment from him. Denise said, I got my peanuts and Cracker Jacks on now, and I got my glove waiting for the pop fly. All right. So I think what we're going to do from now on, during the seventh inning stretch, we're going to make Denise Legaspi a designated hitter, and we'll let her play right field or first base if she wants to, since our regulars doesn't seem to suit up for the games anymore.
All right.
So remind me of that, Real Joe Cruz.
Okay.
And Denise said, Joey is bad news no matter what he touches. And then the long email from Simon, which right on point, Pierre's question about Joey Duenas. And then Richard V. Leone, the point is this event paints another black eye on Gov Guam, etc. Breaking the law is a prevalent practice. Consider the Chamorro Land Trust hoopla. And it's unfortunate. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission was a huge disaster. There's just no getting around it. And the CCU, although it has done some really good work, has really screwed it up here with this executive session and the minutes, etc. I've never been happy with the Election Commission and the way they operate, and it's sad because it puts those commissions and boards that do a good job in an unfavorable light that they don't deserve. That when the CLTC screws up, it gets a lot of press. And the folks at some other board say the Tax Equalization Board, it doesn't screw up. Those people get painted with that same brush as the Land Trust Commission and now the CCU. Oh, you're on a board? What time does your executive session start? That sort of thing. So Richard's got a point, and it hurts. And it hurts those people who are performing well and doing a good job. And then Jesse Limtiaco, client-attorney privilege, lawyer-client privilege. Yeah, not the same at all. Completely different. The client-attorney privilege is completely different from the lawyer-client privilege. Not. Pierre, this is a huge story at the airport. I could never understand how the airport commission could think that a company like DVS, which is a subsidiary of LVMH, the largest luxury company in the world, would let themselves get taken to the cleaners without a fight. LVMH is a $45 billion company. They will take this thing all the way to the finish line. Well, if I've said it once, I've said it several times. Anything that tends to generate fees for lawyers can't be all bad. And the lawyers in this case have already made a pile just off this one case. And then Richard says, fire Jofus Dunsness and the old board, B-O-R-E-D, board. Some plays on words there from Richard Leon. So that's Facebook for today. And let's see what I've got left here, or what I got next on the card. It's supposed to be Melvin Wampad Bora versus Apathy. Yeah, here it is. I'd probably take this down at the end of the program. This is an older daily news article that goes all the way back to a couple of days ago. It says the headline is, After UN Commission. Now that's the Commission on Decolonization, which I have renamed the Chamorro Independence Commission. Commission wants to reignite public interest on decolonization. They want to reignite interest. That suggests that there ever was interest in decolonization. Guam Commission on Decolonization Executive Director Melvin Wampad Bora outlined the administration's goals to reignite public interest on the process of decolonization. Wampad Bora recently testified before a United Nations panel during the 2019 regional seminar in St. George's, Grenada last week. He and Michael Bavacqua, who was there as an expert. According to Wampad, I think probably what they mean to say here is according to Bora, Mr. Melvin Wampad Bora, the administration plans include a self-determination study in collaboration with UOG, a regional conference, and a media education campaign. Now, I'm too suspicious here. I don't see education. I see indoctrination, because that's all that's ever come from Michael Bavacqua or Melvin Wampad Bora, and primarily from the Commission on Decolonization, indoctrination. You have to understand how bad the United States is and how bad your situation is. Now, you may not think your situation is bad. You just haven't realized it. We've got to point that out to you so that you will become dissatisfied enough so you will support a complete separation, a Gwexit, an exit of Guam from the United States so that Guam could become independent and we could establish our own utopia right here on Guam. Perhaps something like the Socialist Chamorro Republic of Guahan, something along those lines. Because none of the pro-independence folks have ever given us any idea what they would foresee if Guam were independent, other than, well, we would at least get rid of the colonizer. A self-determination plebiscite will allow native inhabitants of Guam and their dependents and their descendants to choose independence, integration, or free association. Only because the folks that created the Chamorro Independence Commission have stacked the deck. those are not the only questions. And it's another one like, which would you rather have? 2 nickels, 2 for a nickel, or 3 for a dime? It's the shell game. You'll never guess under which shell you'll find the pea. The focus of the UN seminar was on accelerating the implementation of eradicating colonialism through the process of decolonization. Now, there's a sentence that uses a lot of multi-syllable words and says absolutely nothing by the time you get done reading it. The focus of the UN seminar was on accelerating the implementation of eradicating colonialism through the process of decolonization. Very good. Okay, well, I hear the call to the post all the way from Churchill down, so we'll come back here and I'll have about 8 minutes to finish up the show.
Let's go for a drive.
Let's take a stroll. Let's gallivant.
Let's go cruising.
We all have different ways to describe how we get up and go in our cars. But whatever you may call it, you can do more of it when you save 6% off your fuel purchases at any Shell station when you use your eligible Bank of Guam Visa and MasterCard credit cards. So stop by any Guam or CNMI Shell station and start saving today. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sweet and Smoky Steak and Guac Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take my ex-girlfriend, just checking in.
Aw.
Hey, David, it's me, just checking in. I'm doing great. Just got the new Sweet and Smoky Steak and Guac Signature Wrap from Subway. Creamy guacamole, smoky sweet Wahio mesquite sauce, and double the tender steak. They just know what I want before I do. So, yeah, things are going pretty great for me. Subway, make it what you want. Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub. Okay, bye.
And that's the call to the post. So I've got about 8 minutes to go here. We wind up another exciting, informative issue of Tall Tales. Not to worry, though, because the real Joe Cruz and I will be back again tomorrow at 1600 at 4 p.m. sharp. I guess all three of us will be here. The real Joe Cruz, me, and Hitman Joe Cruz. Both of you guys are coming. Let me ask and see if they are coming. Okay. So going back here, the focus of the UN seminar was on accelerating the implementation of eradicating colonialism through the process of decolonization. Where's my blue pencil here? You know, you take a 3-word thought and expand it into a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, a 19-word sentence that really doesn't say much of anything. Going on, today, according to the United Nations, there are still 17 non-self-governing territories remaining in the world. Interestingly enough, half of them didn't show up for this important conference in Grenada. And it's a miracle because, you know, to go to one of these conferences, going on the government of Guam's nickel, the taxpayer's nickel, you're going to stay in a first-class hotel. You're going to have really good meals, a lot of cookie-pushing events. You're going to get to posture and present yourself as a person of great importance somewhere in the world. And you're going to draw a per diem and salary during the whole time. So who wouldn't want to go? The fact that you're not going to accomplish anything would not be of very much importance if you can get to go, like Michael Bavacqua got to go as an expert. Going on with the rest of the article, in an interview with Phil Leon Guerrero on K57, K57. Is that another radio station or what?
Never heard of it, sir.
Never heard of it. Juan Pat said the UN is an important, and Juan Pat, he's so important that they don't even know his name. Juan Pat said the UN is an important part of the process and that negotiations related to the decolonization process should not be limited to the federal government. Well, who else are you going to negotiate with there, Juan Pat? The Secretary General of the United Nations? The Security Council of the United Nations? How about Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, where the United Nations is located? Negotiations related to the decolonization process should not be limited to the federal government. Parenthesis, maybe we could find somebody else who would pay attention to us, but I doubt it. The UN is important because it allows us to garner international support, build allies, build relationships with other nations. You know, I can just see China and Russia and France and Germany. And during his presentation, now his Juan Pat Borra. During his presentation, Juan Pat Borra used 2 federal lawsuits against the government of Guam to espouse the fundamental need to expand support of the territory's quest for self-determination. The first case involves a U.S. military captain. Now, this is how you color the news. We're talking about a guy named Dave Duenas, right? They start out by saying Juan Pat used 2 federal lawsuits. Well, Dave Duenas is, Dave Davis is a civilian. He's a retired Air Force major. But listen to how this is reported. Juan Pat Borra used 2 federal lawsuits against the government of Guam to espouse the fundamental need to expand the support of territory's quest for self-determination. The first case involves a U.S. military captain who sued the local government. Yeah, so this guy up in Anderson, apparently, on behalf of the federal government, that's what you could read into this, sued after his unsuccessful attempt to register as a voter in Guam's decolonization plebiscite. Now, why was he unsuccessful? Couldn't sign his name? Didn't have a photo ID? Gosh, I wonder why he was unsuccessful. In that case, the district court judge ruled against the government of Guam, declaring the island's plebiscite law unconstitutional. The second case was filed by the federal government against the government of Guam over the implementation of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, claiming the program is racially discriminatory and violates the Fair Housing Act. So, is this supposed to mean that the United States is not treating Guam fairly? When people can use, when the courts of the United States are open to redress violations of the Equal Protection Clause? I'll probably go on about this tomorrow because it's just another one of those things that it could be, you know, with a little rewrite, it could be a good shtick for a late-night TV comedian. But that's it for today. It's been great talking to you guys, to everybody out there at our international radio listening audience. I will be back tomorrow with the real Joe Cruz. Don't worry, I will control all of his hitman tendencies. We'll have a very safe show tomorrow that will be as entertaining as always. So see you then. So long.